Ignition sequence start.
NASA is an independent agency. The agency was formed on July 29, 1958, and to this very day, the agency is still alive and healthy. So, how did it become so popular? Let's find out. Creation. Beginning in 1946, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, began experimenting with rocket planes such as the supersonic Bell X-1. In the early 1950s, there was a challenge to launch an artificial satellite for the International Geophysical Year 1957 to 1958. An effort for this was the American Project Vanguard. After the Soviet space program's launch of the world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, on October 4, 1957, the attention of the United States turned toward its own fledgling space efforts. The U.S. Congress, alarmed by the perceived threat to national security and technological leadership known as the Sputnik Crisis, urged immediate and swift action. President Dwight D. Eisenhower counseled more deliberate measures. The result was a consensus that the White House forged among key interest groups, including scientists committed to basic research. The Pentagon, which had to match the Soviet military achievement, corporate America looking for new business, and a strong new trend in public opinion looking up to space exploration. On January 12, 1958, NACA organized a special committee on space technology headed by Guy Ford Stever. On January 14, 1958, NACA Director Hugh Dryden published a national research program for space technology, stating, It is of great urgency and importance to our country, both from consideration of our prestige as a nation, as well as military necessity, that this challenge, Sputnik, be met by an energetic program of research and development for the conquest of space. It is accordingly proposed that the scientific research be the responsibility of a national civilian agency. NACA is capable by rapid extension and expansion of its effort of providing leadership in space technology. While this new federal agency would conduct all non-military space activity, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, was created in February 1958 to develop space technology for military application. On July 29, 1958, Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act establishing NASA. It began operations on October 1, 1958. NASA absorbed 43-year-old NACA intact. Its 8,000 employees, an annual budget for $100 million US, 3 major research laboratories, Langley Aeronautical Laboratory, Ames Aeronautical Laboratory, and Lewis Flight Propulsion Laboratory, and 2 small test facilities. Elements of the Army Ballistic Missile Agency and the United States Naval Research Laboratory were incorporated into NASA. A significant contributor to NASA's entry into the space race with the Soviet Union was technology from the German rocket program led by Werner von Braun, who is now working for the Army Ballistic Missile Agency, ABMA, which in turn incorporated the technology of American scientist Robert Goddard's earlier works. Earlier research efforts within the U.S. Air Force and many of ARPA's early space programs were also transferred to NASA. In December 1958, NASA gained control of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a contractor facility operated by the California Institute of Technology, Insignia. The NASA seal was approved by Eisenhower in 1959 and slightly modified President John F. Kennedy in 1961. NASA's first logo was designed by the head of Lewis's Research Reports Division, James Motorelli, a simplification of the 1959 seal. In 1975, the original logo was first dubbed the meatball to distinguish it from the newly designed worm logo which replaced it. The meatball returned to official use in 1992. The worm was brought out of retirement in 2020 by Administrator Jim Breedenston. Foundational Human Spaceflight. X-15 Program, 1954 to 1968. NASA inherited NACA's X-15 experimental rocket-powered hypersonic research aircraft developed in conjunction with the U.S. Air Force and Navy. 3 planes were built starting in 1955. The X-15 was drop-launched from the wing of one of 2 NASA Boeing B-52 Stratofortresses and NB-52A, tail number 52003, and NB-52B, tail number 52008, known as the Balls 8. Release took place at an altitude of about 45,000 feet, which is 14 kilometers, and a speed of about 500 miles per hour, which is 805 kilometers per hour. 12 pilots were selected for the program from the Air Force, Navy, and NACA. A total of 199 flights were made between June 1959 and December 1968, resulting in the official world record for the highest speed ever reached by a crewed-powered aircraft, current as of 2014, at a maximum speed of Mach 6.72, 4,519 miles per hour, which is 7,273 kilometers per hour. The altitude record for the X-15 was 354,200 feet, which is 107.96 kilometers. 8 of the pilots were awarded Air Force astronaut wings for flying above 260,000 feet, which is 80 kilometers, and 2 flights by Joseph A. Walker exceeded 100 kilometers, 330,000 feet, qualifying as spaceflight according to the International Aeronautical Federation. The X-15 program employed mechanical techniques used in the later crewed spaceflight programs, including reaction control system, jets for controlling the orientation of a spacecraft, spacesuits, and horizon definition for navigation. The re-entry and landing data collected were valuable to NASA for designing the space shuttle. Project Mercury from 1958 to 1963. In 1958, NASA formed an engineering group, the Space Task Group, to manage their human spaceflight programs under the direction of Robert Gilruth. The earliest programs were conducted under the pressure of the Cold War competition between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. NASA inherited the U.S. Air Force's Man in Space Soonest program, which considered many crewed spacecraft designs ranging from rocket planes like the X-15 to the small ballistic space capsules. By 1958, the space plane concepts were eliminated in favor of the ballistic capsule, and NASA renamed its Project Mercury. The first 7 astronauts were selected among candidates from the Navy, Air Force, and Marine test pilot programs. On May 5, 1961, astronaut Alan Shepard became the first American in space aboard a capsule he named Freedom 7, launched a Redstone booster on a 15-minute ballistic suborbital flight. John Glenn became the first American to be launched into orbit on an Atlas launch vehicle on February 20, 1962, aboard Friendship 7. Glenn completed 3 orbits, after which 3 more orbital flights were made, accumulating in L. Gordon Cooper's 22-orbit Flight Faith 7th May 7th, 15 to 16th, 1963. Katherine Johnson, Mary Jackson, and Dorsey Vaughan were 3 of the human computers doing calculations on trajectories during the space race. Johnson was well known for doing trajectory calculations for John Glenn's mission in 1962, where she was running the same equations by hand that were being run on the computer. Mercury's competition from the Soviet Union, USSR, was the single-piloted Vostok spacecraft. They sent the first man in space cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin into a single Earth orbit aboard Vostok 1 in April 1961, 1 month before Shepard's flight. In August 1962, they achieved an almost 4-day record flight with Adrian Nikolaev aboard Vostok 3 and also conducted a concurrent Vostok 4 mission carrying Pavel Popovich. Project Gemini from 1961 to 1966. Based on studies to grow the Mercury spacecraft capabilities to long-duration flights, developing space rendezvous techniques, and precision Earth landing, Project Gemini was started as a 2-man program in 1961 to overcome the Soviets' lead and to support the Apollo crewed lunar landing program, adding extravehicular activity EVA and rendezvous and docking to its objectives. The first crewed Gemini flight, Gemini 3, was flown by Gus Grissom and John Young on March 23, 1965. 9 missions followed in 1965 and 1966, demonstrating an endurance mission of nearly 14 days, rendezvous, docking, and particular EVA, and gathering medical data on the effects of weightlessness on humans. Under the direction of Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, the USSR competed with Gemini by converting their Vostok spacecraft into a 2- or 3-man Voskhod. They succeeded in launching 2 crewed flights before Gemini's first flight, achieving a 3-cosmonaut flight in 1964 and the first EVA in 1965. After this, the program was cancelled, and Gemini caught up while spacecraft designer Sergei Korolev developed the Soyuz spacecraft, their answer to Apollo. Project Apollo from 1960 to 1972. The US public's perception of the Soviet lead in the space race by putting the first man into space motivated President John F. Kennedy to ask the Congress on May 25, 1961, to commit the federal government to a program to land a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s, which effectively launched the Apollo program. Apollo was one of the most expensive American scientific programs ever. It cost more than $20 billion in 1960s dollars, or an estimated $225 billion in present-day US dollars. In comparison, the Manhattan Project cost roughly $28.8 billion, accounting for inflation. It used the Saturn rockets as launch vehicles, which were far bigger than the rockets built for previous projects. The spacecraft was also bigger. It had 2 main parts, the Combined Command and Service Module CSM and the Apollo Lunar Module LM. The LM was to be left on the moon, and only the Command Module CM containing the 3 astronauts would return to Earth. The second crewed mission, Apollo 8, brought astronauts for the first time in a flight around the moon in December 1968. Shortly before the Soviets had sent an uncrewed spacecraft around the moon. On the next 2 missions, docking maneuvers that were needed for the moon landing were practiced, and then finally the moon landing was made on the Apollo 11 mission in July 1969. The first person to walk on the moon was Neil Armstrong, who was followed 19 minutes later by Buzz Aldrin, while Michael Collins orbited above. 5 subsequent Apollo missions were also landed astronauts on the moon, the last in December 1972. Throughout these 6 Apollo space flights, 12 men walked on the moon. These missions returned a wealth of scientific data and 381.7 kilograms, which is 842 ounces of lunar samples. Topics covered by experiments performed included soil mechanics, meteoroids, seismology, heat flow, lunar ranging, magnetic fields, and solar wind. The moon landing marked the end of the space race. And as a gesture, Armstrong mentioned mankind when he stepped down on the moon. It stands alone in sending crewed missions beyond low Earth orbit and landing humans on another celestial body. Apollo 8 was the first crewed spacecraft to orbit another celestial body, while Apollo 17 marked the last moonwalk and the last crewed mission beyond low Earth orbit. The program spurred advances in many areas of technology peripheral to rocketry and crewed spaceflight, including avionics, telecommunications, and computers. Apollo sparked interest in many fields of engineering and left many physical facilities and machines developed for the program as landmarks. Many objects and artifacts from the program are on display at various locations throughout the world, notably at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museums. Skylab from 1965 to 1979. Skylab was the United States' first and only independently built space station. Conceived in 1965 as a workshop to be constructed in space from a spent Saturn IB upper stage, the 169,950 ounces, which is 77,088 kilogram station, was constructed on Earth and launched on May 14, 1973, atop the first two stages of Saturn V into a 235,000 nautical mile, 435 kilometers orbit inclined at 50 degrees to the equator. Damaged during launch by the loss of its thermal protection and one electricity-generating solar panel, it was repaired to functionality by its first crew. It was occupied for a total of 171 days by 3 successive crews in 1973 and 1974. It included a laboratory for studying the effects of microgravity and a solar observatory. NASA planned to have a space shuttle dock with it and evaluate Skylab to a higher safe altitude, but the shuttle was not ready for flight before Skylab's re-entry on July 11, 1979. To reduce costs, NASA used one of the Saturn V rockets originally earmarked for a cancelled Apollo mission to launch the Skylab. Apollo spacecraft were used for transporting astronauts to and from the station. 3 three-man crews stayed aboard the station for periods of 28, 59, and 84 days. Skylab's habitable volume was 11,290 cubic feet, which is 320 meters cubed, which was 30.7 times bigger than that of the Apollo Command Module. Apollo Soyuz from 1972 to 1975. On May 24, 1972, U.S. President Richard M. Nixon and Soviet Premier Alexei Kosygin signed an agreement calling for a joint crewed mission and declaring intent for all future international crewed spacecraft to be capable of docking with each other. This authorized the Apollo-Soyuz test Project ASTP, involving the rendezvous and docking in Earth orbit of a surplus Apollo Command and Service Module with a Soyuz spacecraft. The mission took place in July 1975. This was the last U.S. human spaceflight until the first orbital flight of the Space Shuttle in April 1981. The mission included both joint and separate scientific experiments and provided useful engineering experience for future joint U.S.-Russian space flights such as the Shuttle, Mir program, and the International Space Station. And there's the history of NASA. How did it become so popular? Well, when they were sending the first people off to the moon, that's how it became popular, because they were aired all over TV. And NASA is also aired on a couple of TV shows as well. It is also featured in a couple of TV shows as well. And some TV shows also include people who actually work at NASA as well. Anyways, this is where I'm going to end off today's video. If you guys happen to enjoy this video, please make sure to hit the like button. And also, don't forget to subscribe, because I do videos every single day. And also, don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a single video that I upload. And also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell on my second channel. My second channel will be the third link in the description below. And if you guys would like to send me fan art, you guys can send me fan art on my Instagram. My Instagram will be the second link in the description below. And if you guys would like to join my Roblox fan group, my Roblox fan group will be the first link in the description below. And if you guys would like to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter will be the fourth link in the description below. And if you guys would like to follow me on Reddit, my Reddit will be the 5th link in the description below. And if you guys would like to follow me on TikTok, my TikTok will be the 6th link in the description below. And if you guys would like to check out my Facebook page will be the 7th link in the description below. And until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!